Hello, a very warm welcome to the interview on France 24. I'm Sanam Chantier. Today we're joined by Mr. Kamal Kharrazi, the head of Iran's Strategic Council on Foreign Relations. Mr. Kharrazi is one of the foreign policy advisors to the country's highest power, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He served as a foreign minister in the Islamic Republic from 1997 to 2005. Mr. Kharrazi, thank you very much for joining us. Now let's start with the latest round of US sanctions imposed on entities and individuals with ties to Iran. Of course, Tehran has said it will retaliate. What do we expect to see here?
Yeah, they're putting sanctions on Iran, Iranian figures and organizations. Is considered to be against the deal agreement. More than that, putting pressure on international banks to not cooperate with Iran is another symbol of violation of this deal. Therefore, all of these activities of the United States are considered to be violation of the deal. But still, the United States claims that is committed to the deal until they make decision otherwise. We have been prepared ourselves for the time that if the United States would withdraw from the deal, then we know how to do it.
Of course, the Iranian parliament has actually discussed increasing funds for its ballistic missiles program. Is that what's being considered as part of the retaliation?
That is considered part of retaliation because it's all right to develop our missiles for the defense purposes.
Now, Iran officials have said that the violation of the nuclear deal, any violation by Washington, will prompt them to withdraw from the agreement. But perhaps we could say that these particular punitive measures are merely going against the spirit of the accord. Wouldn't you say that? Yeah,
it is against the spirit of the accord, and it is considered as the violation of the letter of the deal as well.
How about the fact that US officials are actually urging European leaders not to do business with Iranians? How far does this have to go until Iran takes its complaint to the Special Arbitration Commission?
Yes, it is true that they put pressure on Europeans not to make a deal with Iran. That is what I say that it is against the letter of the deal, because according to items 26 to 29, everyone as signatories of the deal have to show the goodwill and help the appropriate implementation of the deal. And therefore, what the United States is doing is against the letter of the deal.
You're speaking about all these violations, but Mr. Kharrazi, what is Iran's red line?
The red line is the time that they would withdraw from the deal, and that time certainly is a completely new situation.
Now, this is all coming at a time that the Donald Trump administration has also brought an end to a covert CIA program which provides training and arms for rebels in Syria who are working against the government of Bashar al-Assad. Is this essentially what Iran has been waiting for?
They have helped the terrorist groups a lot. And according to what Mr. Clinton said, they have been helping creation of Daesh as well in time. Therefore, their stop to send information and arm to these terrorist groups shows that the Syrian government has been successful in spreading their territory and push the terrorist groups back to other places. And therefore, it's time that everyone should think about how peace can be developed. In that sense, yes, they have been forced to stop their support to terrorist groups because nobody can accept that.
Now, staying with Syria, Foreign Minister Javad Zarif has raised concerns and question marks over the use of chemical weapons of Bashar al-Assad against his own people. Now, of course, there are various watchdogs and governments that say otherwise. Now, if at a point this is proven to be true, even by Iranian standards, then how can the Islamic Republic justify doing exactly what was done to the country, these atrocities during the Iran-Iraq war?
Yeah, and you never justify using chemical weapons. But it has to be substantiated that the Syrian government has used it. There are information that it was the Daesh and other terrorist groups who have used chemical weapons, not the Syrian government.
Now, one Western leader, certainly when it comes to Syria, seems to be in the same position as Iran when it comes to the fate of Assad. And that is, of course, France's own Emmanuel Macron, who is saying that the country is no longer seeking to push the Syrian leader out of his position. Now, does this mean that we can expect to see more cooperation between Tehran and Paris, certainly when it comes to regional issues?
Yeah, that is true. And we appreciate the position of the President Macron. It shows that it's more realistic. And certainly we are ready to cooperate with the French government for promotion of peace and security.
Even on the ground in Syria and Iraq, shall we say?
That has to be discussed, that what kind of cooperation can be established between Iran and France and, of course, other partners like Russia and Turkey, who are joining together as Astana process.
And let's move to another regional crisis. Kuwait has just downgraded ties with Iran. Is this something that you're holding Saudi Arabia accountable for? And if that is the case, can we expect to see reciprocity measures, or will you continue to at least publicly call for dialogue?
We are for dialogue. We know that Saudi Arabia has made a lot of mistakes in Yemen, in Bahrain, in Iraq, in Syria, but still we are ready for dialogue. I believe it's only through sincere dialogue that the regional issues can be resolved.
Now let's move on to another crisis in the region. That's, of course, the catastrophe in Yemen. But we do seem to be getting somewhat mixed messages from the Islamic Republic of Iran. On the one hand, you support a government because you don't want it to be forced out. That's Syria. And on the other, you're providing backing for the Houthi rebels who want exactly that.
No, it's not exactly that. It's quite different. In Syria, we are against changing government by force, by outsiders, by other foreign countries. But in Yemen, is the natural rights of people of Yemen who wants to play a role in their internal affairs. They are not for changing regime, as it is for Bahrain. Bahrainis are not trying to change the regime. What they do is just they are asking for their natural right to play a role in their political system.
So what is Iran's response to allegations that it's creating tensions in the region, certainly because Iran does seem to be expanding its powers? We're talking about Iraq, Syria, and now Yemen, of course, Lebanon and Gaza as well. What are the reactions that you're giving to these allegations?
Iran is not spreading tension. Iran is for a status quo. The reason that we are helping government of Iraq and Syria is to keep the status quo, to keep the stability of the region. Those who are supporting terrorist groups are for instability and insecurity. So it's quite different. Naturally, we have had influence in the region, not recently, from old time, from centuries. And right now also by our participation in supporting Iraqi government and Syrian government and eradication of terrorist groups, naturally we have some influence, and this is quite acceptable and very normal.
You just mentioned terrorists, and we saw recently that there was an attack on the Iranian capital by the Islamic State group. Has Iran become vulnerable?
Oh yes, Iran has been always vulnerable against this terrorist group, but had been stable enough to fight with terrorists. One of the reasons that we rushed to the help of Syrian government and Iraqi government was concerned about our own security, because they were very close to our border. Baghdad was very close to be collapsed, and in that sense, they could come to Iranian border. And therefore, Iran has been threatened by these terrorist groups and always is vulnerable.
Lastly, I'd like to move on to Iran's human rights issue. I know that this is not your area, and of course it's in the hands of the country's independent judiciary, but yet another American, this time a Princeton student, has been detained. Now, when it comes to you deal with foreign relations, is there concern that the country's image is somehow being compromised in the eyes of the international community, especially for those that want to come and study in the country, conduct research, work, contribute to the country's economy?
If he's innocent, your talk is, understandable. Your position is understandable. But it has to be proved that he's innocent. This happens everywhere in any country, that people go for spying or committing some crimes, and naturally they have to be arrested. Why there is such a sensitivity toward Iran, that someone who has been arrested, everyone thinks that he's innocent?
Do you think it might be that, for example, in France, when something like this happens, if someone's accused of an act of terror or espionage, the evidence is made public? Do you think that would help Iran's case?
That if he's not innocent, certainly the case would be made public to show that what kind of crime he has done, what kind of activity he has done that has been arrested. And in France, there has been arrestment. In Britain, has been arrestment. In Russia, there have been arrestment. So everywhere it may be happening. What remains is evidences to show that he has been innocent.
And the possibility of it being made public, the evidence?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Mr. Kamal Kharrazi, the head of Iran's Strategic Council on Foreign Affairs, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And thank you for watching this edition of The Interview on France 24.